Hello and welcome to our much anticipated Navigating AI in a New World of Work panel event. My name is Marcia Custodio. I am the South Texas Market Director for Akkodis. Myself, along with my Texas team and several of our visiting colleagues, are very, very excited to host you today. And obviously, we're super excited about the panelists that we have here for this event. AI is a hot topic. We all know it. That's why we're all here to discuss and share. And I'm going to pass this right over to Rajesh so that he can do proper introductions of our panelists and get this started. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, Marcia. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Thank you for coming, first of all. I am super excited to be part of this panel. We have scientists here, we have data science engineers here, we have founders here. Oh my God, I was like sitting here thinking, how am I going to run this event as it? So hopefully you bear with me in terms of what some of the questions I might ask and then the answers you folks are going to give. So that said, my name is Rajesh Chandru. I'm part of Akkodis. I lead the consulting sales. I'm the vice president for that business unit. I'm going to ask Philip, why don't you introduce yourself a couple of minutes and then we'll go across.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for coming here. Thanks to Akkodis for organizing this amazing event. My name is Felipe Paragues. I am currently a founder of a company called QuickBench, doing predictive analytics for small and medium businesses using machine learning. In short, my trajectory, I've been working in the AI field for, I'd say now 12 years. I started in academia doing research, computer vision for medical diagnosis applications, then worked for a SaaS company building predictive maintenance models or models to predict failures in industrial machinery. And more recently, after that, I moved to professional services, helping Fortune 500 companies to build and deploy AI solutions. And since last summer, I'm working as a freelance consultant and also working on founding QuickBench. So thank you so much for being here and really looking forward to it.
My name is Dee, one letter shy of a failing grade. I am the president and co-founder of Protect AI. We are about a 2-year-old company. The founders, we spun out of Amazon. We led the AWS AI/ML business line, if you will. And we do, the company's name is Protect AI, so you can kind of guess what we do. We're either branding geniuses or branding idiots, and we're really excited to be here. We're about 70 employees. We'll grow to about 200 for this time next year. Customers in the intelligence community, federal government spaces, and regulated industries of healthcare, life sciences, energy, and finance.
Hi guys, my name is Chris Keel. I'm responsible for AI and data science within Akkodis. My entire career has really been focused on operationalizing AI, spread across multiple different industries, heavy focus within the customer care side, employee satisfaction elements, and I'm fairly new to Akkodis. I have a whopping 7 months of experience within the staffing side, so really excited to be here. And really excited for the panel, mainly because the marketing has really changed the game as it relates to the topic of AI. Even though I've been in the industry and doing AI for a couple of decades, I'm not going to age myself here, but quite a bit of time. The last 18 months have been a wild ride, so really excited to talk through and share some thoughts and have a good discussion.
I'm Doug Raybold. I actually live down in San Antonio, Texas. I am the founder and chief experience officer for Bold Ray Consulting. I also happen to have a day job, which is with a large international global BPO that shall remain nameless, because that way I can speak my mind while we're here and give you my thoughts and opinions. I'm going to bring a little bit different spin than the rest of these folks, probably because where I come in is really on the consumption side. So how do we leverage these technologies to deliver a better experience, ideally a cheaper experience, but how do we leverage that to really bring about improvements with the way that we consume IT services?
Hello, my name is Greg Spihar. I'm the founder of a company called Guidance AI. And the notion behind this company is to apply a third level of assurance. Right now, when you build an AI, you have the data coming in, which, good inputs or good data will give you a good LLM. And then you have the second category is being able to control what's being put in and what's coming out, pre-processing, post-processing. And so the concept I'm trying to really understand, and I've figured out, is there needs to be a third one, which is around compliance. If I can ask it a bunch of questions and frame those questions in a way that I get in response an analog, but I'm able to convert that to a digital footprint, we can actually begin to see whether the AI is sane or not and other things. So we can do compliance, we can do measurement of output because I can train another AI to do that. And then a third thing would be even going towards a guidance type system. So that's what we're doing today. I did want to mention one thing. I've been telling my mom about this for 6 months, and she was excited that I was going to actually speak. And so she called me up last week, and she's like, I think I've been hearing a lot about this A1. This A1 is really great. And she goes on and on about it. And then I'm like, are you talking about A1 steak sauce? She's like, yeah, isn't that kind of what AA is all about? You kind of sprinkle it on everything because everybody's doing it. And I said, Mom, that's AI. She's like, oh, it's AI. So.
Thank you, Greg. That was funny. That was interesting as such when I heard it for the first time. So that's it. What we will do is, we have 3 broad topics that we have thought through. We'll spend 15 minutes each for each of those topics. I have some questions that I've created to ask the panel, but feel free to add the questions and then we'll take some of them and we'll ask the panels as well. So with that, the first topic that we wanted to address is return on investment on AI. So everybody keeps talking about AI, like what is the return on investment? So Chris, if I may start with you, how can AI contribute to the bottom line? And what some of the examples that you can share with us?
Yeah, I like this question. I'm going to start by going through and kind of quoting a little bit of Gartner and Forrester because they've done a lot to set the stage. I know, right? They released a few different studies around how many AI projects have been absolute failures. And the metrics have ranged 80%, 75%. And so ROI and impacting the bottom line really comes through a few different aspects. One, trial and error. You can't be afraid to make a mistake. I don't think any of us have ever gone in and been perfect right off the bat. So impacting the bottom line, if you've done digital transformation or anything along those lines, guarantee you didn't get an ROI the very first time you did it. And it took trial and error. So I think the different ways that AI can truly branch out and impact is extremely wide and broad. It can be as far as inventory control and understanding and being able to predict customer patterns and really making sure you have the right product on the right shelf at the right time. Customer care, making sure that you can automate some of the tasks away from agents and really focus in on a much more cost-effective channel for your customers, or even looking at how we're going through all the autonomous vehicles and where they're going. So it can be a revenue generator. It can be a cost savings play. There's so many different aspects, and really it varies on the industry. But the number one aspect is it absolutely can, so long as you stick with it. And that you realize the mistakes and you realize that it's not a silver bullet either. You have to go through organizational change management. You can't just implement a tool and then say, yeah, my job is done. I'm going to get new revenue or I'm going to impact costs. You have to make sure you're going through all the steps the same way you would with any traditional project.
Awesome, Chris. Philip, how would you say from your scientist view as how it will add to the bottom line?
So on top of what Chris was mentioning, right, like all the possibilities in terms of new lines of revenue, even new business models that we're going to start, I think, seeing with all the new technology in terms of generative AI and LLMs, and of course cost savings opportunities. Usually the way I think about this problem, or one pressing problem in terms of in terms of determining the ROI, is how to measure it and how to be able to communicate that, right? I think since I've been working in this field, ROI associated to a specific AI solution has always been hard to measure. It's always been, and I think that more often than not, we've been either like scientists, we've been struggling to articulate the value, or we haven't done a great job at tying technology to value and ROI. Scientists and engineers, we get really excited about the possibilities and about how all the cool things that you can do. And if you don't believe that, go to the GPT 4.0 presentation yesterday, right? Or 2 days ago, which was amazing. But we get too excited about technology. But definitely being able to articulate and quantify the ROI is really hard. I think it's going to be harder now because, and I'm sorry, I'm checking my phone. I just got like a lot of notes here, like, you know, to prepare. So I'm not like, but there's really no template, or we are a little bit on uncharted territory with all the new technologies that are now coming up with like generative AI. So I think it's going to be even harder. And like Chris was saying, there's a lot of non-technical elements or non-quantifiable elements that affect a lot the ROI, right? Adoption is a big one. There are many factors that are not technical that are really hard to quantify in terms of ROI, which is adoption, how much employees or people are willing to actually use and pay for these technologies or use these technologies internally. So yeah, I think that's why strategic consultants now are seeing a new wave of business coming up because, again, we are in unprecedented times.
So Dean, what would you say from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say it's not as hard as that. I'm going to be somewhat controversial. It's important to understand that AI does two things. Before ChatGPT, it really was only designed to do one thing, and that was to be an optimization engine. It's really good at optimizing repeatable tasks, right? Sorry about the echo. I don't know where it's coming from. So we have a framework that we used at AWS that we then brought with us to this firm. And it's actually pretty simple to think about what you're trying to do because you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to optimize, right? So we wrote some columns and we'd give people colored sticky notes to write on. And we'd have business leaders come in, not technologists, scientists, or engineers, because the people who own the business process are the ones that own the P&L or they own the cost, right? And so we said, what are you trying to optimize for? And there's kind of a couple of categories. Number one, are you trying to optimize economics, meaning I want lower cost or higher revenue? Are you trying to optimize the number of people that it takes to do something? Because those things are not always the same. Are you trying to optimize or minimize the number of mistakes that are made? Or are you trying to optimize or minimize the size of a mistake that's made, right? And then once you have that, you say, hey, list your business processes, just back the napkin, 1 to 10. Hardest or most to least. What you'll notice is that the things in the middle all tend to group together. So the ROI is actually something that cascades and multiplies. It's a multiplier effect. That's what AI fundamentally does. So if I'm trying to optimize for the top of one thing, it's going to be at the bottom of another, and then the ROI gets really messy. But if you aim for one thing that's common, somewhere in the stack rank of 3 to 6, it's across those things, you get a massive ripple effect against what you're trying to optimize for. That's for classic AI. For generative AI, I'll have to go ask ChatGPT. I don't know.
That's a great perspective, Doug. Dee. Doug, could you give us some of your views?
Sure. And I'm going to go back to Gartner, so no royalties being paid. I'm not a subscriber either, so they can shoot me. Gartner actually came up with this model that they call the Total Experience Management Framework. And Total Experience Management touches on employee experience, customer experience, user experience, and multi-experience, which is sort of the omnichannel approach. And when you talk about leveraging AI, it actually touches all 4 of those points. And so where the ROI really comes in is when you leverage the technology to touch all 4 of those points. What you find is an effective and efficient total experience management framework implemented right leveraging these technologies, you have 6 times higher revenue. You have 30% lower employee turnover. You have 40% lower customer churn. And so it's really sort of a top line that becomes your bottom line ROI. And so that's where I think it's very important, is for us not to just look at these technologies in a vacuum, but look at them holistically. What is the overall enterprise leverage that we gain, and what's the outcomes? And that's what's really important, is let's focus on outcomes, not on outputs. And it seems like there's so much conversation around what AI generates for us, what's the output? But really what we need to focus on is the outcomes. That's the ROI.
Craig, do you want to use?
Sure. I'm going to speak to my day job. So I'm actually working for a bank, and we're somewhat of a late adopter in a lot of different technologies. And I think the IT department in particular spends a lot of time trying to temper expectations in order to make sure that we don't do something that messes up the data, more or less, right? So all these technologies come in, and the business and other people want to rush right in and get it done. And they learned from the past that when that happens, you end up making some big mistakes that are extremely costly. So one of the interesting things that we've realized as this AI thing has been manifesting over the last 12 months in particular, is that it's just another tool in the bag. And so one of the challenges we're faced with today is really understanding what's our pipeline of projects that are going to be automated. So AI will be part of one of those tools in that automation package. And so we've already got a process in place around, what does it mean to actually do automation? And if we're going to use AI, how are we going to use AI? So we'll have RPA, AI, all sorts of BI tools and things like that. So the other piece is going into the business and saying, what do you have in there? And I think this is unique to certain organizations where they're happy just doing the work the way they're doing it. So how do we get in and kind of explain to them, well, you can do things differently, and here's a tool that we can use, one of which will be AI. I think part of the interesting piece that's happening is with all this marketing is the business is coming to us and saying, hey, we want to use AI. They have no idea exactly how it's going to be used, but they think it's going to give them a benefit. So this is going to hopefully be an open door for us to go and kind of find out what they're doing so that we can begin to put that in the pipeline and really calculate what that ROI is going to be. And I think I've been watching a lot of people expressing the failures, and I think what I've learned is when organizations say, hey, we're going to do AI, and what are you going to do? Well, we're going to AI this, and we're going to AI that, and we're going to AI. So there's multiple levels of AI, and that's like a recipe for disaster. So that's a lesson we're going to take based on the stories and the information, where if we're going to do it, even though we might be able to do 3, we're going to do 1 and see if we can get that to work, and then add the next one.
So if I may take all the points of view that came up, what would be the constraint that we believe AI will pose in terms of getting an ROI if we got to implement? Anybody, any views?
What's the constraint
Yes.
on getting an ROI? I'll go first. Poorly defined success metrics.
I would say unpredictable factors that are hard to quantify. Mostly adoption, change management, and alongside with poor metrics, poor implementation strategies.
Chris?
D stole mine. What the? I was supposed to go first. Now, if I can't use D's answer, I would say data availability or metric availability.
So I'm going to peer into my crystal ball, and I'm going to say we're going to see the same thing in 3 to 5 years that we saw with digital transformation. 70% are going to fail. And the reason they're going to fail is because they're not tied to a good, solid strategy that has buy-in at the C-suite across the board.
Interesting. Greg?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to plug the whole guidance AI thing. I do think there are opportunities where, if we're going to move forward with a particular implementation, having good metrics, there's companies that are already out there, Dynatrace being one of them that we use, that look at systems, but I think there's that additional, it's almost like a personality test. If we're organic AI ourselves, well, we're basically hiring these AIs. Is it keeping sanity over time? We have measurements to come out, but how do I know that that thing is consistent? And more importantly, it's like every 6 months you're going to get a new version. So how do you integrate that and confirm that it's going to behave and continue to provide that ROI?
Thank you. From all what you folks said, there's one thing I didn't hear, so I wanted to touch that point. Workforce, is that a constraint? Do you think there is a need for the existing workforce, the skills to be trained, retrained? Dee, why don't you give us some view of what you think about it?
I think the answer is no, because it's impossible to do, right? If you look at cloud adoption as kind of like a metric, where there's companies that, AWS started in 2007, and how long did it take for people to go, okay, fine, the cloud is more secure than the shitty data centers we've built, right? Like maybe you guys do it better. And yet there's still a couple of businesses that still hold on to the notion that they're not going to move to the cloud. Bye-bye. Like they're going to die. And why is that? It's because if you're not willing to kind of retool and retalent, and this notion of upskilling is possible, but I don't know that it's fair to put that on businesses to upskill their existing employees. Their employees, you have to learn and be curious. You have to dive deep. You have to do that for yourself. So if you don't, if you're not willing to take that risk and then readjust your metrics, by the way, that starts at the top. I don't think it's something that we can do. It's like, and technology will largely take care of this problem. And here's why I say that. Remember in 2009 when everybody was like, I need an app for that. And you'd be like, what for? I don't know. And nobody knew how to build, say, an app. What happened? Agencies came up with an entirely different tool chain, with an entirely different system, gave it to the CMO, gave it to the CRO, and now they had a shadow IT stack that took that out of the hands of IT, and it took a little bit of time for that to come back. You're seeing the same thing with AI.
Greg, what do you say from your perspective, from the bank, being in the bank, like what type of impact do you see from a workforce perspective?
We're just beginning to have conversations about what sort of things can be utilized for. And I think one of the things that I really like, I work for Farm Credit Bank of Texas. I'm not representing them, I'm representing myself, by the way. But what's fascinating about this particular organization is it really looks after the farmers. And I think one of the unique values that AI could potentially bring to it is that relationship with the farmer. If I'm a farmer and I need credit to plant my field, to feed my cattle, etc., I go to the farm credit system and get a really great loan. I'm a partnership with them. I have that relationship with them. And if things go bad, the weather goes bad, I'm not going to be shut down. There's that relationship is solid to the point where we've evaluated them. We know we have like 97% credit rating, which is unbelievable in the industry. But we know our farmers, we know how they operate, we help them do what they need to do. And I think AI could possibly bring a little more to the table for this organization in identifying people that may be seeing some trouble, right? I mean, a lot of times we don't know they're in trouble until they stop paying the bill. Well, if we can have additional information, we can have that conversation sooner. Does that make sense? I mean, I think that would be a tremendous win from a business perspective within this context.
Got it. Doug, what would you say from a workforce impact? How are the companies addressing the workforce aspect of AI?
So the workforce aspect is very interesting right now. And I hearken back to a few years ago when it was just chatbots, and I would go in and I'd talk to frontline agents, and I'd be like, so think of it in SWOT terms. Is a chatbot is it a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, or a threat to you? And more often than not, they'd say threat. And I'd say, can you think of it in a different way? And they'd be like, well, I guess maybe it's an opportunity. Okay, how? Well, the opportunity is suddenly, yeah, we may not have as many interactions coming to you, but what does come to you is going to be more complex. It's going to be more challenging. It's going to require you to be better skilled. And so when I think of what's happening in the workforce right now, I guarantee you the CFO is salivating going, great, we can cut heads, right? That's what's happening right now in the C-suite. Don't kid yourself. That's what they're thinking. But the reality is we're going to be left. AI is only going to be able to soak up so much. Yes, it's going to get better and it's going to get better and it's going to get better to where it's going to be able to identify and it's going to be able to, address some of the things that are emerging. But right now, it's really kind of in its infancy, if you will, to the point that it requires this pool of data. It's not necessarily solving things, it's addressing things. And it's addressing what it has historical data that it knows how to address. Now it's getting better and it's getting to where it can be more proactive. But the reality is right now, we need the front line needs to be better equipped, better upskilled, and better ready to handle the things that the AI can't tackle, whether that's a chatbot or whether it's a virtual agent or whatever that is. They need to be prepared in essence, we need to be looking at shifting things further and further left. So, what they're handling today is going to be soaked up by the AI. But what maybe is going to a tier 2 or a tier 3 resource today probably needs to shift down to the front line so that they can address those and tackle them, and so that customers don't continue to think that, God, the service desk sucks, because that's what they think today.
Thank you. Philip, what would you say?
So usually my take on the impact on the workforce, I like to be pragmatic and realistic. Probably everybody in this room has heard the AI is coming for your jobs, kind of like adage or, that you hear around. I think even though that is definitely a very reductionist argument, there's like some element of truth. I think it's undeniable right now that there's a lot of tasks that are going to get automated by these technologies that before couldn't get automated. We've been dealing, and as a collective workforce, we've been adapting to automation for decades, right? This is not the first time that we're going to be automating things, that we're going to be adapting to that. So I think it's going to happen. And for sure, anyone that still believes today that keeping the same business model of having a call center with 100 operators without doing anything with this new technology is probably not being realistic, right? What I would argue is that that's not necessarily an ominous or a bad thing. I think, and we've seen that. I like to think about that in seeing like previous revolutions and technology advances. There's going to be a lot of good that is going to come from that. The workplace is going to be much more productive. I guess the million-dollar question is, as companies become more productive, more profitable, how is that going to affect the society, like the distribution of all this wealth, right? Which is a very old question, much older than AI. And so what I would say is, and I still believe that there is a responsibility on leaders to empower and enable employees with tools and ways to learn the skills. I don't believe that necessarily the workforce needs to just become an expert on AI to be able to function in this new world. I think now with all the materials and tools that are out there from online courses, there's a lot of ways and possibilities to get retrained on that. And I think it's the obligation of leaders and founders and people that are like in charge of the strategy to provide with the tools. And I believe honestly that it's possible to do that. So that's my pick.
A capstone on that. Two things. The first job that AI is coming for is coders. Mm-hmm. So let's be clear. The good news is that the coders know this. So what are they doing? They're using AI as a coding calculator, right? So they are using the tool that they think is going to come for their job. And that's an important allegory because I think of AI and workforce displacement, let's call it what it is, in a very simple term. If you're good at your job, AI is going to make you great. If you're bad at your job, it's going to help you polish a resume.
Great. That's a very good point. I got to go look at my resume and then refine it further. So, Chris, when your conversations with our customers, right, do you see that there is a need to educate the customers, whether it be mid-management, executive management, in terms of what is AI? Do they understand it? Do we need to give them some view of how it has to be looked at?
Oh, there's a massive need. I'm going to go back to a conversation that I had last year, and I will forever remember this conversation. I was sitting in with a CEO, a very big company that I will not name, and they said, well, I got to reduce costs. I want to fire my entire contact center. Can you go just get me 5 GPTs and do that job? And he was serious. And that was a massive education effort going, okay, what are you trying to get to? What do you think AI really is? And then what are your goals and that side? And then going down the level, being able to provide that education. Honestly, we have a great program. I'm not plugging, I'm not in sales, but from an academy perspective, where it's literally training from executive level all the way down, just because there's that big of a need. Really understanding the impacts, how to do it, and then the new advancements that are constantly coming out. I mean, you've seen all the horror stories out in the public where I think there was just one last week where Burmese got a $14,000 purse and they sold it for $13 because somebody convinced the chatbot that was the sales price, and that there's a huge risk there. So educating the risks, the rewards, and that side, and then how do you do it ethically, and that. So it's going to continue to grow. I myself have to go and get educated on a consistent basis. I was just over at MIT talking with some researchers on some of the stuff that they were going through, and it's like I need to continually absorb it. And so if I need to, I can guarantee you everybody's going to need it. So I think that's going to be a continual growing industry side.
Great. Doug, what would you say?
So it's interesting. We were talking before we all sat down. We were up here in a circle and we were talking, and one of the things that came up is we keep hearing, I want AI. I want to do AI, right? And the first question out of my mouth whenever I hear that is, what does that mean to you? And it's incredible when they have no idea. What they know is there's this buzzword. They know that there's this huge marketing hype out there right now about AI. But they don't understand that most of the tools they have today have embedded AI in them already. And so one of the first things I do is take them down the education path. Automation is an AI. Machine learning is an AI. Hey, do you use Netflix? Yeah. You know how when you watch a movie or you watch a TV series and the next time something else pops up? That's machine learning. Oh, really? They just have no idea. And so this whole education element is so important. It's so critical. And I hate to say it, and God, I hope there's nobody in here with one of these companies, but every company that came out in the last year either has .io or .ai at the end. And it just drives me batty because most of them had that product that is really their premier flagship product for years. And all they've done is they've rebranded themselves to take advantage of the hype cycle that came about because of Gen AI. And so, we need to take a step back and we need to just educate people when they say things like, I want to do AI. Great. What does it mean? Explain to me what you understand, and then I'll explain to you what it really is.
Greg, do you see that in your org, that you need to educate your teams about what AI, what they think about it?
So there's two pieces to this. There's the guidance AI part, and then there's kind of my day job piece of it. On the day job side, most of the folks are already. I'm in the IT department working for the VP of product development. So almost everybody has already got their co-pilot, and so that ship is come and gone. And initially they were a little apprehensive, but then when they realized, one guy's like, I can't solve this particular problem, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to ask. He was resisting, and he's like, I'm going to ask co-pilot. He came back and he's like, it figured it out. This would have taken me a week, and it figured it out. I'm like, this is great. And so he was instantly changed. But that's one particular group of people. There's across the board, I think, within the culture and within this nation in particular, this race to AI is panicking, I'm sure, a whole slew of people, if not the employees you have, in terms of what's going to happen to them. And I think as a organization, I'm calling Guidance AI, what I'm wanting to bring is hope, humor, and humility. Hope in that, to the point we've made before, that if you're good at what you're doing, this is going to make you really great, right? And it's going to make your life a lot better. AI is not going to take over the world, and we're going to be in some room somewhere just staring at the ceiling, right? We all consume and create. This is another tool. It's the reinvention of the wheel. There's hope, right? Second piece, humor. We're going to fall apart and do different things, and I've enjoyed working with ChatGPT in particular. There's a lot of humor, and I also, when I'm working with it, will try to inject humor as well, and so it can be a very interesting process through that. And humility in that I think there's a lot of companies that we got AI and it's going to solve your problem. Really, a little arrogance there, it's and then you dig in deeper and it's not. I'll give you an example real quick. We're rolling out to a number of end users the whole Microsoft AI product suite. They have AI in PowerPoint, Excel, whatever. And so we're seeing a real value around maybe even Outlook, because it can help you write an email or find things. Even in Word, there seems to be okay, I want to do this document. It'll pound it out. Even in PowerPoint, but in Excel, it's super difficult. In particular, inference engines aren't really good at doing math, and that's all Excel does, right? And so, we're really trying to temper the use of Excel at this point, because it's not a proven thing. And more importantly, if you have end users that have their own special Excel spreadsheet and they don't save it, right? They import that and they start asking the LLM to make changes to it. Now they've just blew away a bunch, and they're gonna have to spend weeks trying to fix it, right?
9,000 cells shot to hell, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's surprising how many companies are still run with Excel.
Philip, how do you see?
So I think one important piece of the impact in the workforce is how to establish trust with your employees, with your workforce in general, right? And at least in my experience, the best way to build that trust is to, whatever actions you take or whatever policies as a leader you set for a company, always do that listening to your employees, and always do that counting on them, right? I think it's my opinion that the more you get people involved into this type of decisions, the more that you go to your employees. And I agree that coding is going to be dramatically changed in the way that we write code. But I did that experiment with a client of talking to some of their developers and asking them, what do you hate doing? And every coder is saying, I don't like writing tests. I don't like writing documentation, right? And using that feedback to at least start addressing the things that employees don't want to do, that they find more cumbersome and more tedious, and overall make them as part of the decision, or at least getting the input of the decision, overall is a great way to enhance trust and overall lower the entry barrier to that technology and helping them feel less threatened. I think that's an important thing.
Dee, how do you see in your discussions with customers?
I want to plus one what he said on trust. So we have a very simple philosophy. There will be no enterprise AI without security, safety, and governance, right? That's just not going to happen. There's a reason not every company has been like, oh, sweet, I'm going to put my own ChatGPT out to the world, because the ones that haven't gone so well. But the key is going to be thinking about how you use it, how you govern it, how you disclose it. Honestly, let's be clear. A lot of us, probably all of us, are leading teams in some capacity. There's going to be AI employed on you. There's going to be AI employed on your teams that you don't even know is being employed, much like they did in application security, right? It's just going to disappear into the background. That's okay. But if you are in how many people are in a regulated industry today, working like finance, energy? Okay, if you're in a regulated industry, particularly one of these three, energy, finance, anything to do with healthcare that touches human health safety, you are actually being regulated right now by your federal regulators, and they are coming for you. So you need to be able to make sure that you know how to answer their questions. If you're in finance, know how to answer what's called SR 11.7. If you're in FDA or healthcare industry, there's about 4 frameworks that you really need to understand. If you don't do that today and you are in the technical backbone of a company, no matter what you do in that firm, you need to get some education on that. And just tertiary education. It's not like a PhD or a master's. Just know what questions to ask.
Yeah, so indeed, that's awesome. This gives me a way to one of the other topics I wanted to talk. Greg, I might start with you on this. What do you believe are the potential risks, challenges associated with AI implementation?
What are the risks and challenges? I think we've touched on a number of this in some previous discussions here that we just had. But I believe, from my perspective, one of the risks that I think are out there that we're not really fully embracing just yet is that we're going to spend a lot of energy into building this technology and deploying it kind of as an intelligent being, more or less, and then we're going to iterate over it. So 6 months from now, it's going to be obsolete, so now we get another one. Okay, well, then we get another one, so we're 2 years out, and we lose scope in terms of what it's actually doing. So, and this is kind of where I'm trying to do that third part, the IV&V, integration, validation, verification. And in the old days, it would be, we're building this, here it is, it's built, now we're going to do some testing and verification. All right, we're good, and walk away from it, right? Well, it's almost like we need to do that now every day almost. And we're at the bank, we're building systems now that are going bam, bam, bam. I've built a system that wakes up every morning and logs in. It's using RPA, logs in, it's called Mighty Mouse. So it's supposed to come save the day. Sometimes it's more like Chicken Little, but it's supposed to go in and manage that risk. So I think those are the technologies that are going to have to be brought to the table for this stuff to really fly.
Mm-hmm. So Philip, is that how you also see?
I see, perhaps because in my experience, I had to deal with the problem of explainability and having to build AI solutions for clients that required in regulated industries, particularly required explainability. I think explainability is going to be a big one. There's always and it all revolves about the concept of trust, right? And you hear me saying trust and adoption so many times today, it's just like repetitive, but it's all part of it, right? Explainability is a key part of trust, and there's always the two opposing forces of more complex models that are more accurate are going to be less explainable. For now, from a technical standpoint, it's still not clear how to provide explainability for like the deep learning models and generative AI. So I think that's going to be a key one, particularly in regulated industries. And that's something that explains why like a lot of models in the financial, like credit models, for example, they still use linear regression, right? Because it's just like, and that's how it works. You need that explainability by law and by regulation. I think that is one thing. The other part I think is going to be a challenge is that I think there's always going to be, and I might be completely wrong, this is my opinion, but there's always going to be a lag between what governments are going to be able to regulate and what people are going to be doing. I think governments are always going to be behind, and I think a challenge is going to be that there are going to be people building really big things and things with like big capabilities out there that have like a perceived value, but then there's going to be regulation that's going to come in and it's going to like cut their wings, right? Because we've seen that governments always just like, it's harder for them to catch up with everything that's going on, particularly in this field in which like every week is a new world.
But I don't know that they're going to be behind. They're just dumb. Like they're trying to regulate what they don't understand, right? So if you think about medicine, you think about the FDA, forget where you are on the political spectrum. Like the FDA has a pretty good way of thinking about safety, security, and governance from the time on your telemedicine when you book an appointment to the time that somebody fills your prescription, right? We have an FDA. Now, you may not like the organization, but at least they're staffed with doctors and scientists. There are people in government right now making regulations on AI that couldn't spell AI if I spotted them the A and the I.
Maybe they call it A1.
Right. So this is the first technological transition where the governments are trying to get ahead of deployment and not acting after the fact, right? Nobody was like, hey, we should regulate the iPhone. Said no one ever until 15 years passed. But now everybody's like, before, we're literally on the hill. They can't agree on anything except to regulate AI. We're the most divided country in how long? And yet, I'll give you an example. Markey, Bud, 2 senators. Markey, a blue senator from Massachusetts. Bud, a red senator from North Carolina. These 2 are agreeing on a framework to regulate AI in healthcare. Name another thing that they'll agree on. There isn't one. So they're trying to. They're just dumb. Like, honestly.
They're afraid of AI. There's opportunities to build AIs that manage government better than people.
Amen. I'll sign up. I'll buy that stock tomorrow.
And that kind of goes to where I was going to go. The genie's out of the bottle. I mean, it's escaped. There's no putting it back, right? And so, to me, the biggest challenge, the biggest risk, is the people. And I mean, we can't even stop people from clicking on a stupid ransomware email. How the hell are we going to keep them from keeping the guardrails up for AI? I mean, it's the people that are going to be the big risk here. It's the users that are going to be the, they're the ones who are going to open up the floodgates for all the PII to flow out, and suddenly you have these massive breaches that I mean, the breaches we have today will look like, it'll look like a trickle, and these are going to look like the Mississippi River.
I was going to say, I would play off of honestly both of those. In my opinion, the 2 biggest risks for AI implementation is the individuals that are voting on how to regulate it and design that regulation, and then the people that want to better themselves and do it with the best of intentions and create that risk. And I'll give the example of that. Executives will set certain expectations of speed. It's got to be done now. The end developers will cut corners. They will move around so they can meet the deadlines. Agile methodology, please don't throw anything at me, has destroyed the risk, opened it up completely, because I'll just fix it the next sprint. Meanwhile, this vulnerability is out here for forever and a day, and I forgot about it. And so they're doing it with the best of intentions, but it's truly, I think those are the 2 massive risks for any AI implementation going forward.
Great. I wanted to give some time for the audience to ask questions. So, Jerry, if you could share some of the questions from the audience.
So, I think AI is kind of the key word right now. But machine learning versus AI, 2 really different things in my mind anyway. And how would you differentiate those 2 topics?
I get asked this question every day.
That's an awesome question.
It's rare that there is a panel that you don't get that question, right? So you want to go first?
Yeah, AI, the only difference between AI and every other kind of software you have is that it touches a machine learning model. For an AI application to be an AI application, it has to do something with a machine learning model. And the machine learning model, I like to say, if an AI is a car, the powertrain, whether it's electric, EV, what the hell ever, the powertrain is the machine learning model.
That's a good one. Anybody want to add?
Yeah. I would literally have very, very similar explanation. I use the bike all the time. Is truly, if AI was the bike, ML's the chain that's moving it. So you can't have one without the other. Plain and simple, and we all agreed we would not define AI. I want you to know you opened this up.
No, we said we wouldn't let him ask the question. We didn't take any hedge bet on an audience asking that question.
But I would use the exact same analogy. You have to have ML to be AI in any way, shape, or form. It's the chain on the bike.
Chris will define it over drinks after the session is over.
I'm down.
Philip, you are about to say something.
I guess I'll give you like the more academic explanation for that, which I guess it makes sense in my mind, and what the other panelists say, I think is like pretty accurate. I would say that AI is the more like umbrella term, and I think I'll give you an example of like something that is AI that is not machine learning, and I think machine learning is a subset of AI, or is a way to build AI, right? So machine learning would be any technology that has the ability to learn patterns from historical data or from data, right? All the process that involves, I'm going to learn a model from historical or past data or text or corpus, what's it called? Corpus of text. That is machine learning. You got a model, you got an algorithm, computer learning from data. That's not the only AI that you can have. The term AI has been around when there were like expert rules, right? Like directly, nothing learned from data, just like rules that say if like this value is over here, then say that it's an alert. There's like, for example, in industrial applications, digital twins have been used for many years, basically representations, physical representations modeled with physical equations about processes. They don't use data. Some of them they use now, they call it like fusion models, but they don't use data they are artificial intelligence in the sense that they try to automate a cognitive process that is characteristic of humans, but not all of them learn from data necessarily. And I think that's a distinction in my mind between what is machine learning as a subset of the whole field of AI.
The reason I would take issue with that is go to ChatGPT, right? Go to ChatGPT or go to anything, and what do you have in the upper left-hand corner? It says select which model you want to use, right? So it's like you go for a BMW, you want the 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series, you want to spend a shitload of money. Like it's really like that interplay between the model and what the application is doing is vital to understand. How many people in here have a role in security or, okay. For those who have a role in security of the enterprise right now, there are people within your business who can go scan your environment, find your laptop, and they can itemize it, right? They know it belongs to you. If you have an AI application deployed or an ML application, right, it's just using a model, ask yourself how you can scan your environment and find where that model is, what it contains, who touched it, so that if there's a bug or vulnerability in it, where do you go to fix it? Right? It's a new asset in your inventory, and you've got to be aware of that because Chris nailed this point, and so did he, which is that people want to do the right thing, but this is the most insecure technology domain there is right now.
I have one more question. All right, so this goes to adoption, right? And you guys have spoken to it. We've got the C-levels going, we need AI. We need AI. I'm the guy going, where? Okay, so how do we identify or engage with a consulting company when we don't necessarily know how it can help us? Does that make sense? So I'll expand on this before I give you. So something that was obvious for us, we have documents coming in, financial institution, and we need to classify those documents. And that was a real low-hanging fruit. We identified that very quickly, and we're using machine learning to route those documents to certain categories and so forth. Pretty obvious, all right? But beyond that, really, it becomes, there's a lot of our processes that could probably benefit from AI, but it's not obvious. How would you handle that?
I was going to say, this is my favorite question. So that's why I got really excited when you asked it, because it's one aspect is opening up the conversation. Just having a conversation with somebody else who has deployed or who has looked at it, and then bringing in specialty or subject matter experts to go through. The smallest of processes are ones that I always look at like immediately, because if they're not going to impact anybody in any way, shape, or form, and I can automate away and whittle away at the 20%, I can start impacting the 80% really, really fast. I think the other part is not to be okay with a critical conversation. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of times where people get very defensive going through because they kind of want to protect their sandbox. You can do AI anywhere, just don't do it here. Or don't do it here, and don't do it here. And that really you have to look at the optimization as part of the holistic approach that you're going through, and define how you truly want to be successful. I think that's the number one starting point. And then thing number two on that is understanding basic stuff that has been out on the market forever and a day, and look at the tools you already have. That I think we've all mentioned AI is in them. An RPA tool, process mining and task mining. You want to know the number one way to look at what you need to automate? Look at your process mining and your task mining. Real simple. If you can see that process very clearly mapped out and you go, ooh, I don't need a human here, 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 and here. And you can make a very simple grid. 50-60% of the process can be optimized via some. Can it be optimized? That is a perfect place to go through and say, here's where ML or AI, RPA or IPA can make a play.
That's why I suggested at the beginning, right, that you think about two things. Where do I have the most number of people doing the most repeatable tasks? Because that's stuff that you should try to figure out how to optimize, because you have a lot of institutional knowledge about that. There's probably very little delta between your top performer and your bottom performer as a human in terms of what they're doing in that task. And that's where like machine learning models, maybe not AI, can be applied to really kind of rip the leather off the ball.
Okay. Any other questions from
can
the
I-
audience?
Can I give?
Sure, yeah.
him one?
Yeah,
Or-
please go ahead.
So yeah, to add to that, I think my advice would be in general, go from simple to more complex, right? And try to stay away from all the FOMO. I think a lot of the interest is now in AI is driven a good amount of FOMO out there. But I think like the first thing that needs to be in place, at least in most organizations that I work with, is a solid data strategy. Data, it starts with the data. It starts to have the data in a good state with good schemas, good in a good state of mind. That's a crawl, walk, run, right? The crawl would be like having a good data strategy, and then you go from simple to more complex. Guess what? It's very, not very likely, but it's possible that your company doesn't need ChatGPT or doesn't need any kind of generative AI. It's possible that what is going to move your needle the most and you're going to get the most bang for the buck is just like some predictive model that automates a lot of the processes that the other panelists were mentioning, right? That you have a lot of repeated tasks that can be automated, right? So just like start simple, grow in complexity. Don't rule out everything that has been around for 10 years because that's still out there and still useful. And yeah, just like data first.
So you mean we don't put a little bit of A1 on everything? Come A1 sauce?
How's that commercial go? We put that on everything.
And then we have the Brando kind of thirst mutilator, and if we try to AI everything, we mutilate our process, right? So we got a little Brando too. So.
Thank you very much. This has been an insightful discussion. My question is that what would you consider that you are an AI first company? AI is a lot more than machine learning models because we need to augment our power workers to use the AI, right? If you are in a meeting, you need an automated note taker to take notes for you, so you don't have to go back and spend an hour taking notes and automate all those workflows. But then you mentioned RPA, and you also mentioned there's safety and security concerns as well, that we can use these AI technologies or not. So as executives, what do you think is needed to bring this down from top to down and make a whole organization AI first mindset?
That is a very loaded question.
Yeah. You do a panel of that.
Why does it matter?
So we've solved it. So we've just, it hasn't been officially solved, but we're realizing that AI is just another tool in the toolbox. And if you don't have your governance systems in place, If you don't have a backlog of things you're going to go through and analyze, you don't just do things because people want to do them if you can help it. There's always small to large organizations. The larger the organization, the more organized, the more investment you can make in kind of keeping that backlog of items in place. We're mid-range, so at times it can be a struggle, but we're getting better at kind of trying to figure out what is our backlog, informing the executives, giving a process that we can analyze the automations that need to happen. And if they include AI, then they include AI. And if they don't, we're not going to go forward with AI because there's so much more additional risk with that versus the RPA capabilities.
I think it's less important about being AI first and being AI embracing.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say I would echo that completely. Like I would say why is AI first important? And I would rather be an AI embracer, an AI kind of not AI first element, but I would rather be an AI aware company than an AI first kind of company. So I don't need AI to fix everything. In fact, I don't want AI to do that. I want AI to be meaningful. And so I would say to start is open up the conversation of why do we want to be AI first, and wouldn't we rather be AI aware or that side? So that way the conversations are more meaningful, especially at the executive level. My favorite is sitting with CTOs and CIOs and CEOs, and whenever they use the buzz term of, well, we need an LLM, and I simplify it down going, okay, do you want vector, do you want RAG? And they go, what? And I went, so why? It doesn't matter. So let's look at the problems we're trying to solve, and let's know that we want to work with AI so that we can use it as a competitive element and a marketing element, because that's why companies want to be AI first. And I'd rather be AI aware and be able to stand up and say, I'm using it smartly and I'm not blowing millions of dollars just so that I can be AI first.
And that goes back to tying it to a long-term strategic commitment as opposed to it just being the flavor of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common mistake that you hear sometimes is the typical like hammer looking for a nail, right? And usually when you formulate the problem as being an AI first, it's typically like a hammer, AI is the hammer looking for a nail, right? Where any successful application of this should be the other way around. You need to identify the nails very well and then decide, do I need a hammer? And if so, what kind of hammer do I need? How much do I spend in this hammer? And I think that's the right way to think about it. Just like find the right places and the right problems and then figure out what the optimal way to solve them is, whether with AI or something else.
That was a fantastic question, very loaded, and we could talk on that one for probably an hour alone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Give a big round of applause to the panel and as well as to the audience.
Engineering a smarter future together.